Pat, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with me on the Kaiser Human Performance podcast. What's happening in Big Sky, Montana?
Well, in the last 3 days, we probably got 40 inches of snow. Hopefully, I'll show you a pic after. It's beautiful. Today's a very sunny day, so we'll do some snow shoveling in either cross country or downhill today. So, yeah, and that's why we train, so we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I've come to understand that you are a big outdoors person, so I imagine you're in heaven this time of year. Is that right?
Oh, winter's our favorite, definitely. We love summer, but winter, it's just, yeah, we cross country, we downhill, we shovel snow. We have a toboggan run out over here, a big family competition coming up. Snowshoe, yeah, it's just great. We're living the dream, as we say. We're very blessed. We pinch ourselves every morning.
As we were talking off air a little bit, I think you mentioned that you're going to bring out the entire Kaiser team. Is that right?
Oh, yes. We're having a special workshop. It'll be a winter retreat. Do you
Awesome.
ski? Do you ski or snowboard?
I will if we're coming out there.
Okay.
I lived in the Northwest for a while, so
Okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily consider myself or categorize myself as a skier by any means.
Right.
I can go down the hill fast. I can't really stop,
That's an issue.
but I'm there for a good time.
Yeah. Well, summers are great too because we got the hiking and the biking and the rivers and the all fishing, and it's great. It's all 4 seasons go here except mud season. May can't do a lot. Muddy mess. So that's when people travel.
Well, cool, Pat. I'm really excited to have you on. Obviously, you've had an incredible career in performance training. You've been doing this a very long time, helping so many people. I would love to start off by asking you, what has sparked your passion for shifting this narrative around aging and performance?
Yes, thought about this one a lot. I actually started, what really shifted it was I was a PE teacher, coach, sports coach, and all of that. When I went back to grad school at Springfield College, I got into cardiac rehab and adult exercise science and things like that. So that was the beginning of the interest. But at that time, it was all about exercise, prescription, heart rate, all those kinds of things. And we didn't really learn much about how to get to know a person. Plus, I was very young, and a lot of my patients were quite a bit older. And so until you start getting into your late 30s, you don't want to think about aging. You just don't. So I can remember I did a workshop at Mike Boyle's back, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago or something. And it was about aging. And I'm like, you guys are going to be training me. This is the future. So, but you don't think about it when you're young. You don't. It's just you go through life and do your thing. But then after that, I spent 10 years in corporate fitness and injury risk reduction and health promotion is what they called it in those days. But it was all working with older adults, people older than me who were coming in with a lot of different issues. I'm like, we got to do better than this. And then what really kicked it off is I'm married to a foreign service guy and we moved to Singapore. So that's when I set up my own business. And that's when the whole aging thing really hit because I kept being asked to do continuing education courses on training the aging adult. So 1990, I would say. And then as things moved along, I got involved with the University College Chester in Hong Kong and was asked to be a tutor for their Master of Exercise Science and Nutrition Science. It was a distance learning course at the time in Hong Kong out of the UK. Now remember, we didn't have all this Zoom stuff. And then they asked me, you ought to really do a PhD. Okay, I never published it, but I did it. But it was all about functional training for postmenopausal women. And that's when my interest just took off because I did a 9-month intervention on sedentary postmenopausal women. After 9 months, you should have seen their markers, their blood markers, their function. It was, I should still publish it. The data's over there in that box. But we moved too much, could never do it. So ever since then, those women in my study, they are the ones who really are like, wow. You changed my life and I changed their life, but I got more from them than they got from me. So ever since then, I've been coaching, personal training, lecturing, CEC courses, anything I can do to get the message of robust aging out there. And that's so, yeah, I've been in the aging bit about 30 plus years. Yeah. And I hit 70 this year, so that's a big benchmark.
All right.
So you also learn about things as you go through your own personal experiences and your family experiences. It's life lessons, life lessons. But we can change the way we age. Oh my God. It is so malleable, and that's my mission, that's my passion. And even if you have heart disease, even if you have a pacemaker, even if you're on an oxygen tank, we can give you better quality of life by keeping you moving. That's what it's all about.
So what I hear from you is you're going to finish that PhD and you're going to publish that work. Is that right?
Do you know anybody who wants to sit there and crunch all those numbers?
I might.
Seriously,
I might.
oh my God, it's right over there. It's like this tall. It's incredible. And it was, remember, in those days we didn't have wearables. There wasn't even a pedometer. So functional testing was hands-on. Let me see you do this. Let me see you do that. And yeah, it was amazing. But that's kind of what really, really launched that. And nobody was really talking about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stay here for a moment. I was fascinated because I didn't know that you did all of this at all. So what kind of protocols, were you implementing with this population?
Yeah. Well, what I said two groups. I had a walking only group with education, and then the intervention group they'd see me twice a week, and we had, after each session, we'd have coffee with education. So they walked on their own, and then they saw me for functional training twice a week and had education. The other group walked, kept doing what they were doing, which wasn't really all that much because that's who I was looking at, deconditioned, and they got the education. So anyway, the format was progressive over 9 months. So we always walked. We were outdoors on the Hong Kong Jockey Club track. We
Awesome.
used the bleachers. We were doing bleacher work, stepping, climbing. Then we come indoors and I would set up a circuit of stations that hit all the basic moves. The squats, the lunges, the pushes, the pulls. I used bands. They didn't even have kettlebells. Dumbbells. I used obstacle course training. I tried to hit every single bucket in the performance training litany of training an athlete. And we did. And so we hit it all. And it was fun. Those ladies are friends forever. And boy, did they improve. There was no real emphasis on losing weight at all. It was all more education, what's better to eat, when, where, why, how much, and all that kind of stuff. But that was not the emphasis. It was strictly movement, general health education, and how to incorporate all of that in your day-to-day life. And they tracked it, too. They tracked how they felt. They tracked how many minutes they walked. And this is without this. Nothing.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
technology. And it was just incredible. But the biggest thing that happened with those ladies, remember, they had to be postmenopausal for at least 1 year, and they were pretty much inactive. If you were active, you couldn't be in the study. Yeah, they never realized what they could do. That's what it was all about.
So
They
great.
never realized that they could walk around Hong Kong and they could climb stairs in Hong Kong. And these were a mixed bag of ladies. There were Brits, Americans, Filipinos, Japanese. I had the whole gang there.
Mm-hmm.
It was phenomenal. But their data, as far as function, was off the chart. But their biomarkers, their blood lipids, their blood pressure, and remember, body composition, I did skin folds and circumferences. Huge.
Yeah.
Major gains.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they were quite a group. And they taught me a lot. Because I was, maybe in my 20s, and they were all, average age was 56, So, but you talk about functional, track, stairs, if it rained outside, we'd use the gym, and then we'd use the stairs. So it was like day-to-day stuff on top of strength, power, agility, suppleness, stability, stamina. So yeah, we did it all, and very effective.
And it sounds to me like not just a well-rounded approach in covering a lot of your bases when it comes to training, but really the education piece. It sounded like you said you sat down with them, had coffee, maybe talked about what health really looks like, and that was a huge piece of it.
Yes, and the intervention group got it in small doses, where the control group got it more in like 1 hour sessions so many times. So, but yeah, and the walkers, the control group, their function maybe improved a little bit because I think they were more aware. okay, of just movement in general, but nothing like the significant results on the other side. Nothing. And again, it
So,
wasn't fancy. I had bands, I had balance boards, I had hurdles, I had anything that I could do to improve their overall movement and health.
so when did you decide, okay, I have to come back to America and I need to start implementing this?
Well, it was all to do with my husband's assignments. So
Right.
we came back. We were in Williamsburg, Virginia, near the College of William and Mary for a while. I did a lot of work with them, actually. Worked as a contractor, as a Group X instructor, as a personal trainer, lecturer. So I just kept building, writing, doing all those kinds of things. Yeah, we were in Williamsburg. We came back in I have to do the math, because we were all over. We were in Singapore, Beijing, Hong Kong, back to Virginia, back to Beijing, over to Paris, back, and then over to Berlin, back. So every place I went, I kind of had to reinvent what I was doing. That was a challenge in itself. Yeah. So 2007 we came back, I think. That sounds about right. Yeah. Then we moved to Leesburg, Virginia, and then we came to Montana. We're here 6 years, almost 6 years. Yeah. But everywhere I went, there was always niches that wanted to learn about robust aging. And wherever it was. It was corporate, it was, lay people lectures, it was talking to the local senior center. But I've always kept my hands on. I've never left training or teaching coach. I've always kept that. And I learn something doing that every single day. Client teaches me something, it's just interacting with some colleagues here, it teaches me something. If you're going to be in this profession, you never stop learning, ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I love it. I love it because you're having such a huge impact on people's joy of life, of living. And I don't care what's wrong with you. I'm going to help you move more so you can thrive in your own home. So you're not forced to move to assisted living because you can't function, and that's why they're there. And it's mostly women. So I've had an interesting personal experience too, because my dad, World War II vet, man, you talk about gritty people. Holy crap, physical laborer all his life. But he's like, I'm dying in this home. I am not moving. And he did. He climbed up the stairs and went to bed, and then that night he passed away. Notice I said could climb stairs, could go to the toilet, and this is the end of life, very close.
Right.
My mother, on the other hand, she got an autoimmune disease called inclusion body myositis that completely wastes your extensor muscles. It's sort of like Lou Gehrig's ALS, sort of. It's in that family. Sharp as a tack, her body just fell apart. She had to go to, a senior center, and I had to bring her to Montana. I couldn't leave her back in New York. So, but hers was not her doing. We think it came from a tick over time. But the point I'm making is she had no strength. And her strength is what forced us to have to move her, and she knew it. So people who don't get these weird diseases, it's strength that's going to keep you thriving at home. So you can still function in your home and go out and shop and do whatever you want, and more than that. But it's strength that's the thing that's going to decide I'm forced to move or I can thrive in place. This is huge, and it's bigger for women than men any day, because we outlive men by about 7-8 years, but we do not live better. It's huge. Men can get away with it a little bit longer. They do die earlier, usually because of cardiovascular disease or cancer, like most of us die from those two big things. But they keep their strength a little bit longer. So the women, strength training is a non-negotiable for everyone unless you're really a physically active, doing physical work a lot. But most of us aren't. So, but that whole thing about thriving in place, strength and mobility are the key. They're going to keep you there in your own home. Maybe you have to remodel your home. Maybe you have to put in a different shower or, things like that, which is all good. But it's still strength and your ability to maneuver your ability to maneuver in your environment. Environment drives movement or it squelches it. So,
What a start. So
yeah, there's so
you
much. That's why you got to keep me, on track.
no, unleash it. So you mentioned earlier, just when we started, changing the way we age, and I've heard you talk about this idea of bending the trajectory of the aging curve. Can you expand on that idea?
Yep. There's lifespan. And typically in people who are very, very sedentary and don't take care of themselves, the curve, 35, you're about peaked out. You're not going to, it's not to say you can't get stronger, but you're done growing. You're a mature adult. And if there's nothing done at that point in time, you start a decline like this, longer, slower decline. Now, we've been gifted 30 extra years of life. So, are we going to live those extra 30 years of life in a slow decline where at some point we cross that disability threshold and then we have to have help or move? Or can we take our, you've heard this word, health span, nudge it out close to the lifespan? Brain span, we got to have our marbles. Can we take that brain span and nudge it up close and tight to lifespan? Then we have our strength span, which is going to keep us functional for as long as possible. How can we get that out close to lifespan? And then, of course, my favorite is our play span. The stuff we do for fun that we want to keep doing. Can we nudge that out as close as possible to the lifespan? So if we can do that by healthy living, and movement is our most powerful weapon in slowing the pace at which we biologically age. So can we nudge those out so our curve looks like that? We square off the curve. So we spend less time in the disability threshold. We compress those polymorbidity years, so to speak. Can we smack them down and squelch them? And we can. It's malleable. So 35 is the beginning of the window of opportunity to make a change. 35 to 70 is the middle age stage. That's what, because we've been gifted, a lot of us are going to make it to 100. So when you think along along that perspective, my God, we have to intervene as early as possible and try to square off that curve. And it's doable. It's totally doable. We can improve our odds. That's what it is. We can totally improve our odds of squaring off our curve. And again, women, I'm picking on them all the time, 12 to 13 years dependent. Men's around 7, 8. So we live longer, not better. And we can compress that. And if you even think of people you might know, Gabe, think of a real hardy, gritty, robust older adult. What's up here, too? Their marbles are working, but it's their spirit. They have this, I'm getting back up. I'm going to get hit. Murphy is going to strike. I don't care. That's life. So the bigger your reserve, you get hit with COVID, you're back up again. You got a bigger reserve capacity to dip into. So you can take the hits better. I call it robust aging because resilience and durability, bouncing back over and over and over, makes us robust. Robust withstands the tests of time. No, we're not living forever. Absolutely not. Although some of our longevity people want you to live to 150. I don't, no thank you. But anyway, so it is very malleable. And when people buy in, man, it's fantastic.
I imagine if you get to 150, it's hard to square that off.
In medicine, they're really good at, treating really bad things. Look at our procedures and our medications, and it's absolutely incredible what they're doing. But what happens is a lot of times they're extending life, but not quality of life.
Right.
And that's not our call. It is to a point when people are later on and, they're thinking, okay, this is going to take me out. If I add 3 more meds, does that add to my quality of life? And the meds make me dizzy so I can't move around? Hell,
Mm-hmm.
no. Any medication that reduces movement and freedom to move, that needs to be questioned. Totally. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
So
go ahead.
to recap here, because there was so many great things that you said there. I just took a bunch of notes. I really liked what you said about the lifespan and biological aging, but then connecting the health span with that, the brain span with that, the strength span with that, and then finally the play span, which I think was awesome. And from what I understand about how you do things and how you operate your business and how you help people, is it's really connecting purpose and a lot of that play aspect into these other spans, and that kind of infiltrates these other areas, and that is the overarching purpose and the reason why you get people to come work with you and get in there and exercise and start moving. Is that right?
Yes, totally. Absolutely correct. And the thing is, there's a big debate now going, I just posted something on LinkedIn about this. Health span. People think you're not going to get anything ever. Oh, yes, you are going to get something. Something's taking you down and out. But because of my cardiac rehab, I think that's where it kind of started. You keep those people moving despite what they've got going. I'll give you an example too. You'll laugh. My dad. Okay, I have a bit of his personality. He gets a pacemaker, right? He had AFib, he gets a pacemaker. Well, how am I going to carry my golf bag now, because it's a double strap? Now, this mind he's in his 80s, and he only hops on the cart when his 70-year-old buddies are driving to get up a hill, and he has lung disease. So he does this new contraption for carrying his bag, kind of like the old-fashioned one, so he could carry his bag with the pacemaker. I mean, this is what we have to accommodate, these things. We've got to keep people moving, able to do those things they love to do despite what the heck they're dealing with. So it's a different, sometimes I think trainers, not so much in athletics, because the athletes train so they're more robust, resilient, durable, more resistant to injury, but they practice their sport to get better at the sport. So we build a more robust athlete so they can then perform in whatever it happens to be. What's happened with fitness and training is it's like, this is the silo. No, it's not a silo. What are you in here for? Okay? And this really doesn't start to hit, I don't think, until your 40s. It hits more if you have a child or children, family, and you're looking at your parents thinking, whoa, I don't want to go down that road. Or, oh man, I love what they're doing. I want to just keep at it. So it's training must transfer. And we sure as heck know that from athletic performance. If you're going to build a bigger, slower athlete, they're going to suck on the field. So we have to transfer what we do to better movement outside the gym.
You mentioned some of the downstream interventions with medication, especially later in life, that doesn't necessarily improve the quality of life. So while this seems so obvious to you, right, this age 35 and really building your reserves, it's not so obvious to everybody. So really, from what you've seen, what do you think is like a huge barrier to entry for people to start now? Is it they're waiting for a life experience, like a parent or a child to enter the picture to start? Or, why isn't it so obvious to everybody else?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I think, one, if people were never raised in a physical environment, and I don't necessarily mean organized sports, I just mean physical labor, play, 4 seasons ago, doing projects, DIY projects, anything like that. The physical exertion part is unfamiliar. So one is just unfamiliarity, uncomfortable with being physical. Another is they're afraid they're going to get hurt. Another is I'm going to look stupid. That's for kids. And Another one is an image that we have that I've been trying to crack for 50 years. It's not about spandex, looks, and getting looks. And that, for many people, is still what they perceive as coaches and trainers, more so in the training fitness area. And I think, so it's a combination of things. But once we can hook them, it's like, one of the first things I ask people is, what do you like to do for fun?
Right.
And, some will say, I don't really have a lot of fun. Is there anything you've ever wanted to try to do? Or you always wondered what it'd be like to visit or whatever. I try to find something that'll kind of hook them. And there's always something if you dig, so.
Yeah, that goes back to the idea that we were talking about, is connecting it to a purpose, right? Connecting it to the play span.
Yeah. And
Right.
the other thing is, I'm a grandma now. I have a little 16-monther. I want to be able to teach her to ski. So I want to be able to play with her outside in the snow. It's the joy of family traditions and continuing things and watching them grow and learn and discover. So even if you don't have grandchildren, it's just the joy of movement. And that's been taken out for a lot of people. Athletes do their sport because it's fun and they love it. They love the game. You'll hear them say that. I love the game. Training, they don't always love. Strength and conditioning, not in love with it, but they know it transfers to reducing injury, better performance and things like that. So it's all about that. And the general public's perception of training is usually about weight loss, looks, and maybe a little bit of health. This is the image we need to change. We should be part of every physical therapy, primary care, orthopedic, you name it, part of the system, the network. We are needed more than ever.
I think when we had you on with Paul too, we were talking about the value of creating relationships with other providers in that network, right?
Yes.
You mentioned creating relationships with doctors and other people in the community. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We need to reach out, because a lot of times their perception of us is some of the stuff I just described to you.
Mm-hmm.
And no. And we send a message by what we wear, how we move. I mean, in my opinion, we need to be professional at what we do and appear professional. But we can network with people. We definitely can. Invite them in for training or even a little brief assessment of what you do for a history. Then they're like, wow, I should be asking these questions. Physical therapists, I think, get it. They get it, because we work usually quite hand in hand there. But a lot of times when they're done with PT, then person has to pay out of pocket. So we have to create an image whereby people really, wow, this is going to change my next 3 decades. That's where it's at.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
I think the value of that really can't be understated, because creating those professional relationships allows you to provide better care, and it also creates a referral network for you. So if you're someone who's in the private sector needing to create some business, it's a great way to generate some leads for your business as well.
Oh, yeah. And if they view you as part of the healthcare, not even healthcare, I don't like care, of the whole robust aging system, wow, they buy in. They buy in. Mm-hmm.
So I would love, you just mentioned your assessments and maybe questionnaires, things like that. I wanted to kind of get into your system. I know before you hit on your system of pillars and rocks, and I would love for you to be able to expand on that. Really, what are your pillars and what are your rocks, and how do you break that down for people?
Yep. Without a slide, you're going to see me use my hands a lot.
Movement.
Okay. If people think, first of all, think of 5 pillars with a dome, and then underneath the foundation. All right, so we have to imagine that. So the dome at the top is robust aging. It's resilience, it's durability, it's health and well-being, it's the freedom to move, it's healthy body composition, it's all of those things. Then we have 5 pillars resting on this cement foundation. Now, let's go to the bottom. The foundation is daily, weekly, and seasonal habits, patterns, and practices. That is the cornerstone. That are not even the cornerstones. It's the foundation on which those 5 pillars sit. It's not a program with a start and a stop date. It's not a diet. No, it's what you do over decades. So think of the blue zones. Longevity happens to them because of the way they live their life. So it's not they're pursuing it. It's the way they live their lives that causes them to live healthier. So now we got the pillars, 5 of them. The first and most impactful on your emotional health and your spiritual health, faith, family, freedom. That's the things that get you out of bed in the morning. So that one is the 3 rocks, faith, family, freedom. And people can argue about that, but when you look at blue zones, the people who live the healthiest for the longest have a reason to get up in the morning. They're very well connected to their family, and they are part of some kind of a faith-based organization. And that gains them like up to 20 years of healthier living. So that one, I always say, we coaches, people come to us to move. We don't give them purpose, but we often help them find it. So number 1, yeah, but that's more from an emotional, spiritual health, which relates to overall health, right? Then our most powerful biological weapon against fast aging or accelerated aging is movement. And those, the 3 rocks in movement are 1, what I call motion and locomotion, just plain old movement, steps, chores, walking your dog, just motion, getting away from the freaking screen. Number 2 is play, sport, hobbies, recreation, dance, travel, adventure, DIY projects, you name it. Anything else that you do for pleasure, for fun, you enjoy doing it. And then that 3rd rock, which sometimes stands alone, is the training rock. So we have motion, locomotion, we have play, sport, fun, hobbies, and then we have training. But what in our society today, unfortunately, not as much here, but if your jobs and hobbies are not physically active, training is the only rock. Mm-hmm. So it's just the nature of how the screens have taken over our lives. Good things about it. Look, we're doing this, but yeah.
So we have number 1 pillar, emotion, with the rocks being faith.
Purpose.
Yep. Purpose.
Faith,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Pillar number 2, movement, which includes motion, locomotion, play, and things like travel and hobbies and training.
Yep. And then
Cool.
The 3rd one is the nutrition piece. The 3 rocks, I mean, people are like, Pat, it's common sense, I know, but how come we don't have any? Water, drink water. These are things you need to survive. You got to have the rocks first before you start messing around with these little granules and pebbles. So water, at least half your body weight in ounces, and more if you're doing more physical stuff. The 2nd rock is a wide variety of real, minimally processed macros and micros. And then the 3rd rock is in timely portions and proportions. Now, can you imagine if we all did that? So 3 basic rocks. And then if you go back to Stephen Covey, if you read his books, he's like, if you have a jar and you want to put what matters most into that jar, people fill it up. Well, it's the same thing with building robust aging. You got to have the rocks first. Okay? So then, but today people want granule solutions for big rock voids. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that. If you're frail on the end of your life and you can't swallow and all that, yes, well, that's different. But I'm talking about average people. So that's 3, nutrition. The 4th one, and this one has taken a major hit with screens, is the rhythms of our day pillar. The rhythms, the shape of our day. So 1 is sleep, obviously. Number 2 is relaxing and winding down. There's a lot of ways to do that. I had a really great day, a purposeful filled day. I feel great. I can relax and wind down. And the third one would be recovery as needed. So based on what you're doing, maybe it's job stress, travel, maybe it's physical, whatever. So those 3 things. And what's happened with the rhythms pillar, Well, you know, what have the screens done to our lives? Holy crap. We need them for work, for sure, most of the time. But we don't need them for entertainment. We don't need them because all of a sudden we got downtime. I'm like, oh my God, where's my phone? I got to do something. So we have to do something about the screens. Slice and dice it, I call it. Slice and dice the hell out of screen time.
I can see it stressing you out.
Yeah, but I see it in kids, I see it in adults, and not to mention what they're watching that really is causing depression and isolation and all that kind of stuff. So, where was I? So yeah, the rhythm pillar has been affected by screens. And then the last pillar is stress. Well, the three rocks are this. And I remember doing stress management stuff back 40 years ago with these corporate executives. And, you know, it hasn't changed that much. Stress is the ups and downs of life. How the heck do you think we're going to grow, learn, and discover? If you think you're living in the land of Bing cherries, you're not in reality. So it's part of life. So we have to expect ups and downs, ups and downs. Number two, the perception of the stressor is malleable. We can change our perception of a lot of things that make us miserable. Again, you lose a loved one, that's a different animal than, oh my God, I can't get my cafe latte made with oat milk. I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy. You know, stuff like that, where they call them champagne problems.
Yeah.
So, and then the third rock in the stress pillar would be build a good offense and a good defense, which is very much related to movement, nutrition, and rhythm of the day. So they're all interrelated. But what's really fascinating too is that these pillars are not silos. They buttress each other. And you know, if you have a new client who really has been not taking care of themselves and you get them moving on a regular basis, that buttresses the nutrition pillar, the stress pillar, the rhythms pillar, and it gives them another reason to get up in the morning. So movement is, I believe, the most powerful. From a cellular standpoint, of course it is. But for an overall joy of life, and it's the biggest thing we've got going. So.
Check it out. It's my foundation, my
I'll send
pillars.
you slides. If you want to set the slide to post, I'll send it to you. You got
How
it,
about
though.
that?
Perfect. You got it. Again, to your point, and rocks in first.
Right.
I had a lady come to me yesterday in my class. She's all about protein. She's been reading and listening to too many podcasts and got confused. So anyway, but you can see what happens. Yeah. So I go, what'd you eat today? She goes, I felt like crap last week, and we had a chat last Thursday. And I go, what'd you eat this morning? Protein. Okay. Some chia seeds in there too. Oh, good. All right, that's fine. Where's your carb? Where's your go energy? You're coming for an intense workout. Where's your go? Oh, no, I got rid of that. I'm like, okay. So she came in yesterday and she had some carbs. She added some Greek yogurt and I don't know what else she put in there. Some kind of stuff she has at home, granola or something she makes. Anyway, she's like, whoop, I feel great. I'm like, that's rocks. Those are the rocks. You know? So, and then of course it's people forget, it's the daily, weekly, and seasonal habits, patterns, and practices. A habit is something you do automatic. A pattern is the shape of your day, the shape of your week. Your weekends should be different than your week of vacations and seasons. And then seasonal is pretty obvious. So we don't want to be in a rut, but we want patterns. So anyway,
I think that's a great way to describe the foundation, because people need to understand that you do go through this, these different waves and a seasonality of what the shape of your week looks like, and then really within that, what each day looks like. I think that's awesome, especially in a place like where you're living right now, where so much of what you do is dependent on what's happening outside in terms of seasonality. I think totally.
Yeah, and even if you have a client, I mean, what's coming is this, and I can already see it. I've done it for some people. Pat, I want to work with you for a year. Okay, Holidays, plug them in. Vacations, plug them in. Reunions, plug it in. Okay, now let's see how we can block out your training. You're going to have recovery weeks, travel weeks. You might get sick. So yeah, it's
Almost sounds like almost.
it is, to be honest, that's what I did with my ladies in my study. It was
Yeah.
periodized based on that. And it's like, if you know yourself, if you're, let's say you're going to train for some kind of a big event, a running endurance event or trail run or something, you know, you look, well, there's my date and here's where I am now. Now I got to
Yeah.
get my there. It's the same thing. And there's going to be decline. We have to adapt, but we don't have to stop moving. So.
No, it's awesome. And as I think about it, the place where you're living, right, you have a very active community. People tend to go outside and enjoy the outdoors. I actually thought about it some more. I think in a place like where I am in Chicago, it's actually maybe even more important to plan out those things because
Yes.
those opportunities don't necessarily exist, especially at a time like now during the winter where a lot of
I
people
know.
struggle to get outside.
Right. And this is where, I mean, I give our fitness businesses and rec centers and athletic training centers, pools, anything to keep people moving, you know, in bad weather. Because there's going to be bad weather. But then if you schedule, instead of scheduling a go lay on the beach vacation for a week, well, maybe we go somewhere where we know we can paddleboard. I've always wanted to try surfing. There's hiking in the mountain islands. You know, you go to go do things. You don't keep training. If you've been training, go enjoy it. Have some fun. You're not going to fall apart in a week unless you decide to lay around the beach and drink your face off, you know. So,
Well, here too, I mean, even with a later Thanksgiving this year, you know, the people that I worked with, just we had conversations about prepping for those 4 weeks, which are really tough 4 weeks. I mean, it challenges your habits
yes, it does.
because you're talking about a lot of food
Yes.
and a lot of family time
Yes.
and a lot of socializing in a short period of time. So just planning for that in your entire year, right? When you talk about
Yes.
periodizing everything,
Yeah.
understanding that hey, this is going to be a challenging time and that's okay. Here's the plan in place to maybe combat that and put you in a
Yeah.
good situation. So after that, you're ready to go and you can just keep on flowing.
Exactly. And, you know, you don't want to be the fun sucker. Well, I can't, you know, my trainer, oh my God, enjoy the day.
That's why we're
Enjoy
doing
the-
it. Ultimately, that's why we're doing that. So you can go enjoy it.
Purpose is your family, your friends, yeah. So the obsession with health is going too far over here. You know, we've got two extremes. We've got obsession with every microcalorie tracker, you know, REM, all of it. The informational, good tools. But my God, you can't rely on that stuff forever. And then over here we got someone who's suffering with a metabolic mess and musculoskeletal stuff who don't do anything. So we're trying to bring them both kind of more towards the center of realism.
So, okay, so let's get into a little bit about how you onboard a client. I'm curious to know about your assessments and perhaps goal setting when bringing on a new client.
I do it a little different than a lot of trainers, and I've been doing it this way probably for about 25 years, and it works. First of all, I have a chat with them. Let's say, so, Pat, I have a friend, she's going to call you, whatever, the initial phone call. Tell me a little bit about you and what you'd like to be able to do and why you're coming to me. And then we go from there. We talk a little bit about their time commitment and also their financial investment, what that's going to be. So right off the bat, they are getting set up for, okay, this is going to take me some time and da-da-da-da. But it's a very friendly conversation. And I really delve into more what they want to be able to do, what they like to do. And then if there's any, let's say it came from a physical therapist. Okay, you just got a new knee in, he released you. Okay, now what? Whatever. We go from there. So then I say, oh, I'm going to send you my packet of information. And it's pretty fat. So once they see it, they're like, okay, this chick's serious. This is more about my health. It's not just looks. And I've had one person over my career return it because they said to me, this is too much. I'm not ready for this. So what it is, it's a history, but it's not just the typical health history. I start out with, tell me all about your physical activity history. How did you grow up? Did you play sports? What do you like to do? Did you dance? You know, all that kind of stuff. Did you do physical work? Did you play, anything to do with movement. their history of movement. And then what have you been doing lately? Could be training, could be nothing, could be, well, I still go to the dance studio twice a week, whatever. And then we get into the health history. What's been going on, your musculoskeletal history, as well as any kind of blood work they've got, blood pressure readings, anything like that. I used to be in a setting where I did a lot of that myself, but now people seem to get it via their primary cares or whatever. They have home monitoring and devices and things like that. So I want the health history, and this is the one that's a little dodgy. I need to know the meds. Because meds can affect movement, balance, energy, etc. And it also affects heart rate response, exertion response. People on different kind of blood pressure medications or antidepressants. And I say to them in my form, I say, I want to know this simply because it can affect how well you move and how hard you can push. So some people won't put it down. Others, oh my God, we got a list this long plus 25 supplements. I've had to clean that up as well, the bag of supplements. So anyway, so we get into, their medication history. Then have they had a DEXA, a bone scan? I have a section on for women only. Are they what kind of childbirth did they have? If they went through that, are they having problems with pelvic floor, incontinence issues? This is important for impact. And I'm doing a lecture on that on a whole nother setting because women should not have to wear diapers for 30 years. I'm sick of it. There's ways we can do it. And men with prostate, same thing. So get into those women issues. And then I get into, especially if it's either an underweight person or a very, very overweight person, their history of weight change through the decades. And if they've ever dieted, yo-yoed, how many times have they tried to lose weight? Were they successful? And nowadays we got to know if they're on any of the Wegovy's or anti-obesity medications. This is huge. Got to know that. And then why they came to me, why did they choose me, and what do they hope to get out of it? So those are more conversational things, but you got to know their history. As they get older, there's going to have more stuff. It's rare you're going to get a 70-year-old with no musculoskeletal issues and no meds. Rare. So the active ones are kind of beat up musculoskeletal. They might be healthy, but
right.
The inactive ones have multiple issues.
Okay, so that's just the packet.
Yeah, and then there's the waiver and all that. Then I get it back. And I read everything before we meet. The first session is what I call the assessment. So we sit, I usually take them for coffee outside the gym somewhere, and we sit and talk, and I go through everything because I've already highlighted and put question marks and asked for more, and we go back and forth. We actually set a really nice tone relationship. As a matter of fact, I even assess their gait as we walk to the coffee shop.
I remember you saying that.
So, yeah. And we talk for, say, 30 to 45 minutes, and then we go back to the gym, and then that's where I do a series of functional stuff. And it doesn't have to be two separate buildings, but,
I'm picturing you arriving like 15 minutes early with like some binoculars like in the bushes, like watching them walk up.
Listen, years ago when I used to do Setbacks, pre-employment testing and workers' compensation testing, I would have to watch them out the window and see how they got out of their car to come into the trailer for testing because they were trying to mess with the system.
First few steps into the door, just...
Yeah, exactly. I saw that. But no, so it's really very... Outside the gym is nice because it's a little bit informal. Chat, get to know them.
It is nice. And we talked about having people who, early on, some of those barriers to entry is that it can be intimidating. And starting off that relationship in a space that is not your domain, but a shared space, probably helps people feel a lot more comfortable about it.
Yeah, I always buy them coffee or tea if they don't like water. My treat. It's the least I can do.
Yeah, exactly. And you start the relationship by giving.
Yep. Never thought of it that way, but yeah, it works because it puts people at ease. I used to do all that fitness testing. People come in and we do body composition and we do pulmonary function and stress testing. I did all that stuff. When they come in, they're nervous. Okay, you want me to take my clothes off and you're going to pinch me? That's not very, So having all that experience back in the 80s, I did a ton of that. It's too clinical and not personable.
So In terms of training now, as you go through this, life of, if someone goes through this process of training with you, tell me a little bit about how you go through progress tracking.
Yeah.
Like how are you measuring things objectively, subjectively? What's
Yeah.
important to you? Does it depend on the person? What does that look like?
Yep. Well, at the rest of the assessment, I'll figure out how well they move. Okay. Like I'll do the FMS or the Fullerton Advanced Balance Test, and can they get up and down off the floor? Let me see a squat. I choose the assessment that's most appropriate to the person. In other words, if someone comes in really rough shape, I'm not going to have them do the FMS. I'll do a modified version, but I want to see how they move. And I will look at their feet. My God, feet, so important. Bare feet, because a lot of movement starts in the feet. So anyway, so that's that. Figure out how they move, where they're going, what they want to be able to do. But then as far as progress goes, I like to know when is their next physical and when is their next blood work. So huge. Then I like to, from a fitness standpoint, it's easy. Oh, I could only walk a mile in 20 minutes. Now I can do it in 17. Things like that. I can get up and down off the floor now using one hand as a little bit of assistance. Whereas before it looked like I had to crawl to the chair and get up. You can always tell by form, technique in a squat, in a lunge, in a pull, a push. As far as suppleness and stability, planking, that's an easy one. You maybe start them at the wall and then they're now at the floor doing a full plank. But the best of all is when you get a text or a photo. I just got one last year from one of the ladies in my class. Now, she's a hoot. She's carrying an extra 60 pounds, all right? Food, she loves. But anyway, she moves really well. She sends me a picture of herself up on top of a snow cat. Those big, waving to me. I got up here, no problem. So,
That's awesome.
These are the things that give people joy. Or, Pat, I was able to go in that airport. I didn't need a wheelchair. Or, shoot, Pat, I just won my age group in the local run. There's all kinds of ways, Or even something as simple, I was able to pick up my 25-pound granddaughter and carry her up the stairs and not be afraid of falling. It's confidence and competence that we build. That's what we do. So it's just, sometimes I can't even explain how exciting it is for people to benefit because it's not as tangible. But we can measure physical things for sure. Yep.
I'm sure in your experience, you've had a lot of people that have started working with you, have done really well, and then after a few weeks or maybe after a few months, started to kind of revert back to their habits and maybe see you less. And how do you approach someone that you see is starting to kind of fall off? How do you handle that? What kind of conversations are you having with those people when you start to notice that maybe their commitment is beginning to waver?
Yep. I think you got to figure out what's the root of it. Okay, what's going on with you today? I can't. That's funny you asked that question because I just talked to you about the gal who wasn't eating her carb, and she goes, she starts complaining the one day. I feel like crap. I don't know what it is. I'm like kind of depressed. I'm losing my energy. I don't want to go outside and this and that. So you listen to that. Number one, you listen, and then let's start digging a little bit. Or that's a simple case. Eat a little more carb, get outside a little more in the sunlight if you can, But if you've got someone who is maybe kind of closing down, they're not as chatty maybe, or you can tell by the way they walk in the gym sometimes. You can tell. What's up? What's going on? My husband this, my child this, whatever. Okay, now let's look at the whole situation. If this training session is adding more distress to your life, let's take a little pause. Don't stop moving, but maybe this appointment can be changed or shifted or just take a week off. Take it easy, chill a little bit. And see if you can, sometimes it's a lot of emotional stuff going on with relationships with other people. Sometimes you will uncover something where they need more serious help. That's where you need your referral, for counseling and stuff like that. Sometimes it's medications. I have a client right now. She has anxiety. She's got a lot of fears and she's been overcoming a lot of them, but they changed her med. And she's like, Pat, I don't want to get out of a chair. And she's
Right.
like a go-getter type person. She gets anxious, but she's got a handle on that. And I'm no shrink, believe me. I'm probably the worst shrink there'd ever be. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, let's look up this med and let's see if there's a substitute that works a different pathway. And so that's what she's doing. I mean, people have all kinds of things. You have to have a network, but you got to dig a little because you can help to a point. But then you also have to know, okay, this person needs more than I can handle. I've seen it more with women. I've seen it more with women with eating disorders and things like that. There's a lot of baggage back there that needs to be addressed. So
Yeah.
simple first, we go simple. What's the rock approach? Well, it's probably in one of those pillars maybe.
Right.
But then we dig. If they trust us and they know that what we share is just between us, they will give you more information. So
That's
there's
great.
nothing wrong with taking a break either. There's people think, well, if I don't train twice a week with Gabe, I'm cooked. No, that's not how life is. Things happen. But if the bigger your reserve when these things happen, you don't take a dive and stay there. You work your way back. It's life. It's life. So does that answer
Love
your
it.
question, Gabe?
Absolutely. Well, we started the conversation too today with you talking about just the importance of strength, right? And building strength as a quality. So I'm curious to know more about like your X's and O's of training during a session and really how you target those things. And I know you also talked about increasing intensity without necessarily increasing volume. So tell me how you kind of work to help people build strength, especially someone who might even be newer to strength training.
Yeah.
Or maybe has always been afraid to load at higher intensities or relative intensities.
Yep. Still the basic movement patterns from a strength standpoint. Your squat, your hinge, your step up, step down, your push, your pull, your carry. And of course, we always focus on trunk stability, proximal stability, distal mobility, those kinds of things. But let's take a newbie with a bunch of problems, musculoskeletal, maybe overweight, no confidence. We start where, I think Gray Cook said this, success ends and failure begins. We're right in there and maybe a little bit conservative. So we start with what can you do right now? And it could be maybe a half partial body weight squat, body weight hinge. As far as pushing and pulling, it might be a wall plank. Anything where we can guarantee success. Mm-hmm. And then you can always say, well, okay, you did that, no problem. Let's see if we can take it up a notch. Okay, now we'll go a little lower. Can you do that same plank on the bench? Could you do that same squat maybe with 2 cushions instead of 3? So it's that. As far as tools, I use whatever's available. Body weight first, and I use bands, I use kettlebells, I use dumbbells. I use, if your stuff is around, I would certainly use that. TRXs, ropes. I use whatever tool will get that person to become more confident and competent in a certain move. That's how I do it.
Love it. And how about incorporating maybe faster movements of higher limb velocities, speed and power? How much importance do you place on those qualities as well?
A lot. Because people, what we're after, and this is the same athletic performance model, we want strong, efficient movers. We just don't want strong lifters. We want people to be able to maneuver in their environment of choice for as long as possible. So, environment drives movement. Where do you want to be able to move? Number one. If it's a certain sports skill, well, you better have the skill. Like if you don't ski, Gabe, I'm not taking you up to the double black diamonds on the mountain, okay? We're just not doing that. We'll start with the easy, the green circles, okay?
I'll take the bunny hills.
Yeah, we start there. So speed and bucket 6 or 5 is skills. And that's agility, balance, coordination, power, reaction, and speed of your body weight only. No loads, okay? So you said the key word, move faster. So let's say I'm doing a march in place. Okay, march. Okay, what we're going to do is one march and we're going to do a standing hip switch. Ready? You just got more speed. and you just demanded way more out of your trunk to stabilize. Same with, you lean on the wall with your athletes to work on sprinting drills.
Right.
Hip switch. And they can do that. And they're tapping motor units that they don't typically tap. So from a body weight, total body movement, that's our physical literacy bucket. What you developed as a kid, if you played tag and played and you jump and you skip and you could throw, all those physical literacy things, those are developed early, but we can still tweak them as an adult. Agility, for example, will start out with a cross step, very even, just get used to it. Okay, let's see if we can quicken it up a little bit. Cross step. So, and all planes, planes, that. So the key word that you said is faster. Okay, can we lower our squat, a 3-second eccentric, and pop up? That's power.
Right.
So it's, you get the basic move first at an even tempo, then we can change the tempo and the sharpness. And if it's a cross stick, we could go, what I'll do a lot in my sessions is, okay, round 1, it's a cross stick. Round 2, it's a cross stick. So we'll go 2 or 3 in a row, that type of thing. And but you don't push the speed if they don't have the basic movement.
I say pretty soon you're basically, it's the salsa.
Darn right. Listen, you brought up something. A lot of women dance, and dance is the ultimate brain-body connection because the music lights up certain neurons in the brain. And anytime you cross the midline, any movement at all, even in strength training, cable training, band training, you connect the 2 hemispheres of the brain. Huge, absolutely huge. So a lot of women don't like sport. They just don't like it. But they love to dance. And if we can get them strong and stable and moving faster twice a week, hitting all those buckets there, then they can do their dance.
I think my mom's gone to jazzercise class probably for 30 years.
Good for her. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, she's a mover.
There you go. How old your mom? Don't say it on the screen.
You know what? Yeah.
No, never mind.
She's as young as she's ever been.
There you go. But that jazzercise, number 1, it's group. Number 2, she's got a whole slew of friends.
Absolutely.
They keep an eye on each other. The instructor may change, but they got their group. And when we look at it maybe from a strength standpoint, we're like, that's insufficient. You know what? If that gets her out and about and she's happy, and then she's still able to do physical labor and chores at home and try to stay strong, hey, we're doing great. I think they do have added more resistance over the years, though, right?
Yeah, she does a whole mix. I mean,
yeah. So,
she has a well-blended mix of things that she does, but for sure. And yeah, there's never a place or time that she won't dance. So
see, there you go.
She's in the top 1% in that category.
Listen, we in strength and conditioning and fitness, it's that's not hard enough. No, you're missing the point. What we do is try to train them so they can fill in the blanks. That's what it's about. Yeah.
That's great. No, I really like what you said with the great Cook quote, which was, start where success ends and failure begins. I think that was great.
Right
so,
in there.
Yeah, appreciate that share.
Yourself, if you hired a coach and they're giving you stuff that this is insufficient, yeah. Or they go the other side and beat the crap out of you so you can't move for 3 days, or your golf game is so screwed up, you're so sore. No. So we have to find that, and that's what we do. We're good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so question for you with that, speaking of maybe mistakes that people can make, I mean, you've had obviously a really, really long history in performance and health and performance. As you reflect on your entire career, what's maybe one mistake that stood out to you, or just one area that, you thought you could have done better, or something you really learned from?
I got more than one. One was the realization of what is truly weak. When you're healthy, fit, and you haven't had a lot of injuries, you don't realize what weak really is. When someone cannot step up on a 4-inch step because of weakness, or when they get out of a chair, it's 1, 2, 3. I mean, weak and loss of balance affecting your mobility, those two, man, they just take you down. But I never realized what weak meant until I really started working with people who were frail and fragile and fracture prone. Yeah.
Right.
The
I
other,
think,
yeah, go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. Well, yeah, I think in health and fitness, right, especially as you start in this field, majority of people already, got into it because they enjoy exercising. They came from sport. So weak to them is someone who's maybe, not as
Can't do a
strong as the
push-up.
other people in the
Yeah,
room or can't do a
yeah,
push-up. Exactly.
right.
Versus you start, you get into Gen Pop and you start working with, maybe even special populations. And
Yeah.
like you said, you really start to understand what that means. Because that
So
impacts not
one,
just performance, but impacts.
well, this is exactly right. When you can't do your activities of daily living, toileting, showering, getting dressed, moving from your bed to the toilet, whatever, falls. I mean, 56% of falls are in the bathroom. So, I mean, we're trying to head that off. We're trying to build that. If here's my disability threshold, strength will keep you way up here away from it, even if you got diseases and stuff going on. So that is, strength is like the deciding, strength and power, because to get off a toilet might be a power move, So the other thing is I believe I got too tied up in the science of exercise prescription and focused too much on what people's limitations were instead of, oh yes I can, oh yes you can do that. Because clinical exercise phys very much focuses on what's wrong. And we focus on what can you do? And where do you want to go? And we're going to get you there, despite the stuff you're dealing with. And boy, do some people have stuff. Compared to what we deal with, holy, yeah. So
I think that's great. I think it's well said. Like, absolutely. Instead of focusing on the limitations and really focusing on the possibilities. I love that.
yeah. And you're going to have a bigger impact as a strength and conditioning coach, trainer, on an older adult's curve than, say, the performance curve of a college athlete. And I love performance. I love sport. I've never coached a professional athlete, but D1, D2. I had two kids that played D1 scholarship basketball. So, I mean, I've been around all that. Plus, of course, as you will find out, you will get dragged into coaching every sport if you're into that stuff. Or you're strength and conditioning coach for like 8 teams at your kid's school. It always happens. So I love sport. I love performance. I still like to compete, at stuff. So
When I did undergrad at the University of Michigan, we had a job board at the School of Kinesiology. And my first training client that I ever worked with, she was a stroke patient. And I had to drive, I would pick her up from her house, drive her to the Y, and we would, train. And I didn't know much, admittedly.
right.
I really
yeah,
didn't.
Yeah.
But I knew how to connect with her. But really her goal was, she didn't even care about exercising really at all. It was about helping her get off the floor. Like
There
that's
you go.
all she wanted to be able to do is get off the floor by herself. So we worked for a few months, and I have to say probably to this day, easily the most rewarding experience
Yep.
in terms of my coaching career for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Because when people feel that they can control their movement, they feel confident, they have dignity, they have autonomy over their lives. And there's been a ton of research on this. I'll share this because I think it's very relevant. A lot of some aging institutions, organizations do a lot of surveys on older adults and what do they want out of life. Number one, they want to thrive in place. They do not want to be forced to move. They love their homes. Maybe they'll remodel a bit, but they don't want to be forced to move. Forced. If you choose it, that's another thing, but forced. And they want to feel useful, meaningful, relevant. They want to have a reason to get up in the morning. And movement does that. It just helps people with that. So people always say, oh, Pat, you think movement's the answer to everything? I go, no, but it sure is a pretty big chunk. So anyway.
Pat, I know you do a lot of education, and I know you're really passionate about that. You do blogging, you have a website. If people listening want to learn more or read more about the work that you're doing, where can they go?
You can email me direct if you want. That's PAV. You have it on there, right? PAVGK at AOL. Don't laugh at AOL.com. Anyway,
We'll make sure we
but
include that in the notes too, for
I
sure.
post probably 3 to 4 times a week on LinkedIn under my name, Pat VanGalen, and everything is very much relevant to robust aging. I use performance things, I use aging things. I try to tie it all in. And that's probably where I do the most activity. I absolutely stink on Instagram. I may get better. I do have a website, which is getting updated shortly, activeandagile.com. I speak at different places. I'm trying to think. The international, because you had asked, other organizations, well, the International Council of Active and Aging is one that I speak at and did for 10 years, I think. Of course, anything that Perform Better does is excellent. I think I try not to do, I'm going to say a lot of like one-on-one Zoom sessions. This is different because it's education. But as far as Zoom training, people always ask me, will you train me online? I'm like, my God, at this point in my life, I don't want to sit at the computer anymore. Come see me
No,
live.
if they could see that background, they would understand why.
But I'm still teaching here. I invite people to come in. I travel to do things, workshops live, have courses. I have a big course with MedFit Network, which is cardiac rehab. And essentially, it's really a robust aging course. And rehab stands for restore, energy, hardiness, aspirations, and benchmarks. So it's not your typical rehab.
Right.
That's a course. Yeah, I just reach out if you got, to me, email's the best. Or you can find me on LinkedIn for sure and message me there. Yeah. So
Oh, it's awesome.
I follow a lot of people. I love Dan John. I love Gray Cook. I think what Perform Better and Mike Boyle. All these people are great. They've been in it for a long time. I continue to learn. I just took a barbell rehab and I did it not because I don't even use barbells. Haven't picked up a barbell in a while because the other tools suffice. But I wanted to understand the mentality behind people who that is their hobby. Barbells, O-lifts, power lifts, those kinds of things. I still do those lifts, but with different tools. And so I was trying to understand when that is the hobby, because that's a different animal right there. So it was very educational. Biomechanics were great, but there was a lot of injured people in there. So anyway.
Awesome,
Anything
Pat.
else?
Thank you.
If you have any more questions, I can still,
I'm really appreciative. I mean, I'm gonna note you the ultimate guardian of health and well-being. That's my name for you. The ultimate guardian of health and well-being. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate that.
It's
But
awesome.
you had a really important thing to share with anybody who listens. You said to this day, the lady who you worked with, the stroke lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the kind of experience where you're doing the best you can to give this person confidence, but you change the trajectory of their life. Because when you start falling and you can't get up, that's goodbye. You're in the nursing home or you're in, so this is huge. And if we can compress 13 years of dependent living down into 2 or 1 or a month, or maybe you have a massive heart attack on the cross-country skis today at 95. Hey!
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, we need to look at this differently.
Yeah. I mean, can you believe that was my first experience earning money for personal training? And it's crazy to think about, but it was a really meaningful experience. I think about it often still. So that was really cool.
See, they teach us as much as we can train them. We learn about people through these fantastic clients who are dealing with a lot more obstacles than we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely gives you some perspective. So anyway, Pat, thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to do this, and I appreciate you joining us on the Kaiser Human Performance Podcast for sure. So for those
showing the snow.
Yeah, while you do that, for those that want to follow Pat and everything she's doing, the best place, like she mentioned, would be to connect with her on LinkedIn, send her an email, and check out her website, activeandagile.com. She also has an Instagram, Active and Agile, but she's not making any promises about the quality of the content.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah. I'll comment on things. Yeah. Yeah, I will try to get better. But anyway.
She's too busy enjoying the outdoors. So, well, thank you, Pat. Appreciate it.